Can you hear me?
Um,
Maybe turn the volume up on your computer.
let me see. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, good. I couldn't hear you for a second. There we go.
that's okay.
We conquered it.
Yeah, thank you for putting up with this.
Oh no, I just am so incompetent at this stuff. My teenager's in school today. Otherwise, he could come over here and do this in about 2 seconds for me. So
Right. So we'll talk for about 10 minutes, and we'll just take the best, 3 or 4 minutes, and put it online, and hopefully get some more attention for the book.
okay, great.
Yeah. And then I'm going to moderate your event at the Texas Book Festival.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's what Aaron said. Yeah.
On Saturday. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah. I'm going to wear my scary clown outfit. So, I don't know what you're going to wear, but
Well, I could dress like Donald Trump then. We could both be clowns.
yeah, that's right. So I'm sort of afraid of the answer to this question, but the characters in Razor Girl, they aren't inspired by.
Almost every one of them is. Yeah. But I mean, when I say that, Clay, I'm not necessarily talking about it like an individual person that I know, but usually from a news story that I've clipped out, or an anecdote that I've heard, where it may have just been a couple paragraphs that I read, but you take that and you sort of say, what must that person be like? And then I'll take that and run with it. But they almost all stem from something I've read, or something that's sort of come across the transom in the news, or actual, people that I've encountered. And I may not know them well enough, in person to know their whole life, but you imagine it as a novelist that must have been how they got to that spot, that weird spot they're in,
Yeah. So the specific con that the Razor Girl pulls off, that you had not read about in a newspaper, right?
Not as a con, but the accident that opens the book, the car accident, it happened in the exact same spot I said it did, down in the Lower Keys a few years ago. And it was a woman who was at night, she was driving and crashed into a car full of tourists in front of her, and didn't. Luckily, nobody was injured. But when the police came, they discovered that she had been, the way her newspaper put it, was shaving her bikini area. I mean, that's, newspapers are great for the euphemism, the great euphemism. And there she's got the razor and the whole thing. But I mean, and then the best part is she said she was going to a date in Key West, and she wanted to look good, but the guy in the car with her was her ex-husband. So both of them were going to a date, I guess. But anyway, it's funny because I saved this clipping. My oldest son sent it to me, and I was trying to figure out for years how to work it into a novel. And then Dave Barry has a new book out, nonfiction book, and he had the same clipping, and he writes about the same incident. And neither of us knew we were going to use it, but in the novel, it isn't really an accident. It's an intentional crash,
Right.
And that's the nature of the scam. And I sort of combine that with a common. Excuse me. I combined what really happened with the very common scam in South Florida, which is we have people who crash into other people for a living to get the insurance money. There's whole groups of people who do this. That they're professional accident creators. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Anyway, we just had a little group of them arrested in Miami a few weeks ago, and they just drive around, and they're very good drivers, and the trick is to hit another car and then pretend like you're hurt, and then there's a whole little organization of crooked, everything from the insurance adjuster, chiropractors, lawyers, everybody's involved, and the insurance company usually just writes a check to say go away, and that's how they make a living. So I thought I would kind of combine the intentional bump scam with what really happened in real life. That's how I got to the beginning of the book.
Right. Well, I live in Austin, and I've always thought that Texas is a great sort of gift to a writer, but Florida, I think, might top us.
Texas is pretty strange. I get some clippings, you know, people send me from Texas, and they're right up there. I think Florida has a higher sort of concentration of weirdness, and just the I think per capita quotient of freaks is higher in Florida than it is in Texas. But I think Texas, because of its size, I think there's an endless bounty for writers down there to choose from too. There's a few states where you see the sort of recurrence of this strange stuff happening, and Florida's one, Texas is one, Arizona is right up there, Louisiana is right in the mix. Where they're pretty reliable, you know, inspirations for the kind of writing I do.
Yeah. And so, you know, you've had success as an adult writer and as a children's book writer. Is it easy to shuttle between those two, or do you kind of keep your writing periods discrete, or?
I find it's a nice balance for me. Well, you know, as soon as I finished the manuscript of Razor Girl, you know, I started working on a new book for kids, and pretty much the narrative point of view is the same. It's sort of how I look at the world. I mean, and how, especially through the eyes of someone who was born and raised in a place like Florida. But obviously, the character is going to be different in a kid's book because you're dealing with younger characters. The pace is a little different. You can, I think, hit the ground running a little bit with a kid's book because they don't have as much backstory. You know, the young characters obviously aren't walking on stage with as much backstory and usually as many personal problems as the grown-up characters in my books have. So it's a little different, but I find it a nice balance because the audience, the kids are such great and responsive readers that I didn't ever imagine myself doing this. You know, I thought when I wrote Hoot, whatever it was, 14 years ago, I was really just going to be a one-off, sort of a dare from an editor. And it was a book that I thought I would be able to give my stepson at the time, and my nieces and nephews were all too young to read the grown-up books. And I just thought, well, if nothing else, nobody else reads it, I have something I can give to them, and I don't feel nervous about it. And so I was completely astonished by the reaction to Hoot, because I thought it would just be maybe a regional book for Florida, and so the amount of mail I got, and the kids, the mail was so thoughtful, and these kids are so smart and bright that I just decided to keep writing. It was I think it was maybe the best thing I ever did for myself as a person anyway. Can you hear, I'm sorry, Clay, can you hear all that noise? Are you hearing it?
No, I just hear you.
You're good. All right, I think somebody's out there with a leaf blower.
Oh, we can't hear it.
Okay, good.
Is this your office?
Yeah, this is my office at the house at home.
Yeah.
I have another one downtown, but I don't have a camera.
Right. And you having a TV, you don't find it distracting?
I don't hardly ever turn that on. I turn it on for the news once in a while.
Yeah.
But this is an office I use for a lot of personal stuff and paying the bills and just trying to keep up with things. And then the other one, the office that I write the novels in, has got almost nothing in it.
Right.
There's no TV. There's nothing on the walls. I just have whatever book I'm working on, and I might have a character diagram sketch on the wall. You know, just a sort of a flow chart of characters, and that's it. I don't have anything in that office. So
yeah. So last question. You know, I've read these various articles kind of suggesting that we're now in this, you know, second wave of political correctness. You know, the first one was in the 90s.
Yeah.
And you know, at a time when politics are so personal and identity is so political, are you more wary of writing satire, or does it actually make it more fun?
To me, it makes it more fun. I mean, I've been doing it long enough that I would say that we're going in the opposite direction of civility. But I don't think there's anything that's off limits, at least for someone who writes satire. I mean, that's sort of what you do. You sort of go after the institutional targets and the silliness on both sides of the political spectrum. You know, I think you have to be certainly aware of not being cruel, and but you know, in Razor Girl, the whole sort of the whole Duck Dynasty knockoff. I mean, that in itself is almost a parody of something that's already a parody of something. I mean, those shows like that are very cynically created to exploit a stereotype of being from the South, myself, and probably you are too, that of what people imagine rednecks to be. And if you traveled around the country, you know that every state of the union has rednecks,
Right.
From Montana to Florida to, you know, California. So, but it's what's Hollywood's idea of what Southern rednecks should be and be like. But you take that to the extreme when those people start taking themselves seriously and believing their own scripts. It can be dangerous. You do stir up feelings. And I wrote a lot of that stuff about that show, the mythical Bayou Brethren show, and those characters in it. I wrote that before the current election cycle got into full swing. And then the manuscript was basically done when I turned on the Republican convention, and there's one of the first speakers is one of the guys from Duck Dynasty, one of the actors from Duck Dynasty is speaking to the Republican National Convention in the United States of America in the year 2016. That's the best we can do. I mean, so all I could think of was, even in the novel, even in the crazy stuff that I had created, I would never have dreamt to have one of those characters address a national political convention. Even writing satire, it would never have occurred to me to do that.
Right. Reality is more crazy than the satire you can write about it. So we'll have 45 minutes on Saturday. Do you we'll talk about these kind of questions, but are there any topics you particularly want me to ask about, or just anything?
You know, anything that you think the audience would be interested in. I don't have any boundaries or I don't have any rules at all, except to
Sure.
be interesting, and I'll be as candid as I can about things. I mean, I find in these events, no matter what or who I'm talking to, the subject always goes back to the absurdity of the election that we're in the middle of right now, and Florida's role in it,
Right.
scary as it might be. You know, I mean, so I don't mind talking about that. We should certainly on our minds here in Florida, and to some extent, Trump is a creature of Florida as well. He spends a lot of time here, and certainly long before this election made a lot of enemies here, and he is one of those outsized, overstuffed, you know, very wealthy people who you know, are drawn to this state because we don't have a state income tax, and we got a lot of rich, famous people living here for that reason, and who are claiming residence here for that. Put it that way, claiming residence here for that reason. But I mean, you know, I'll be mindful of whatever you think the audience, you know, wants to talk about. But I don't have any problems.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be in a church, so we'll have to figure out how to talk about the.
You know, it's funny. I had to twice on the book tour. I had off venue sites that were in churches, and there's one in Miami that Books and Books I always do as a synagogue down there, and I always feel like the ceiling's going to open up and a bolt of lightning is going to come down and strike me. But they never want me to self-edit. They said, it's fine. But it's usually like a Unitarian church or something. It's not like a Baptist church, but that's fine. Well, I can clean up. I'm perfectly capable of cleaning up my act. What do you know about the event on Friday night? They said I'm supposed to speak at the black tie thing for like I think 8 minutes or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I before Kirkus, I used to be the literary director of the Texas Book Festival.
Yeah.
So you know, that crowd is I would guess our crowd on Saturday would be a little bit more liberal. You know, Austin is, you know, it's Austin. So Friday will be a mix of Republicans and Democrats. But I mean, it's all reasonable people. They would think that the Republicans would in the audience would think that Trump is ridiculous. So you can make really whatever offensive joke you want to make.
But do the writers usually just get up? I guess what I want to ask you is, do the presenters usually get up and just talk about their own books, or they talk about stuff? I mean, what do they want? What do they want to hear from me?
Yeah, just talk about your most. You said you have 8 minutes.
That's what they told me. 8 minutes.
Yeah. So keep it to the new book. Talk a little bit about the election. I think the other speakers, Diana Monroe is an actress from Orange is the New Black, has a memoir about immigration. So hers will be a little bit political in that context. Ethan Hawke has a new graphic novel about a Native American.
Right.
So I don't know what he will do.
So I'm the white guy, basically.
There is one more, and I forget who it is, but do you know John Shesko, the children's writer?
I know his name, Clay. Yeah. I don't know him personally. But.
Well, he's hilarious, and he's going to be the MC. So I mean, it's not going to be a somber night.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted. I didn't know how formal or how stiff,
Yeah, not stiff at all. It's a crowd that wants to have fun. So
good. And it's not. I mean, if there's an open bar for them, everything usually goes better.
There is. Great. So we'll meet up in the green room before the event on Saturday, and really looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks. I'm sorry for all the technical. I don't do this stuff very often, and I don't know what buttons to hit. But
no worries.
At least we got it worked out, and I'll see you. I guess I'll see you there at Saturday's event then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll see you there.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Okay, have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.